Hey everybody, Ryan DeWitt here from DeWitt PT. I'm here today with Dr. Philip Hsu, one of our PTs, and we are going to be talking about the ankle and foot. So this is an amazing thing that is made up of 26 bones and 30 joints, and most of you guys just put it in a shoe and disregard its existence. So we are going to show you how to optimize this thing in terms of getting the muscles to work around it to better support it, and also a couple of key things that you can do to better connect your brain to the muscles, and also how we can try to just increase our awareness so we can try to avoid structurally overloading it with some of our positioning, especially whether we're turned, our toes are straight or if we're turned out. We're going to talk about pronation, so that flattening of the foot, or more that supination where we can turn that foot into a rigid lever. It does some cool stuff. All right, so here we got Philip's foot, and if we look, he's got kind of flat-ish feet. He doesn't have like a ton of arch here, and that's okay. Everyone's built a little bit differently. It's just how it goes. It's okay. But what we want to see is his ability to, can he correct through that arch a little bit by supporting it with the muscles around the foot? So namely the muscles of this arch. As opposed to using the muscles of his toes, which all go through there, I want to see, can he use the muscles between that heel and the ball of his foot? So he's doing an exercise right now that we call the short foot, or an arch lift. And so what that is it's these muscles in here that are contracting up. There's some muscles along the back side here that run down and underneath, and those are also lifting up. There's also some muscles that run down through here and across here, these different compartments that are all lifting from the top and trying to help that support that position. So for Phil is just to see, can he get his brain to connect to the foot and better support it? And actually, that looks pretty good. You've actually got some muscle in there too. Good job, dude. So number one is, can you just kind of create that arch, hold it, and then relax. And create that arch, and hold it. And I'd be curious if you can do it on the other side, because sometimes one side works and one side doesn't. So let's try that side. Okay, he can do it on both sides. That's pretty cool. But this is something that we want you guys to try at home. So please try this first. Okay. Number two. Toe yoga. So it sounds funny, but this is really, really hard to get people to connect to not just their foot, but then to be able to control the toes somewhat individually. And when I say somewhat, I mean we want to work this, and then we're going to lump all these together because it'd be almost impossible for you to have real control of each individual toe. But we're going to go big toe, and then these four. There's one muscle that pretty much gets this guy, and then there's one muscle that gets these four, so it's only fair. So toe yoga involves creating that arch. And then, can you keep these four down and lift that one? That's pretty good. How about the other side? Can you drop it and then lift those four? Solid. And he can go back and forth. Now he's just showing off. Okay, what about the other side? Okay. That's pretty darn good. So the challenge for you guys at home would be, could you just connect your brain to those muscles of your arch, is step one, that arch lift. And then step two is try the toe yoga and see if you can control that. Personally, I know that I have one ankle and foot that's a little funkier than the other from some past injuries. So it's easier for me to control my good side, which would be my right foot, as compared to my left. And it just takes me a second or a few trials to get in there and see if it really starts to come alive. And a lot of us would just benefit from more frequent connection to that area of our body. So give those two things a try. And then we'll talk more about your walking and positioning as well. All right, so if we start taking a look at Phil taking steps, so what we call his gait cycle, he's going to step onto that foot. His foot's going to pronate a little bit like I talked about, and then he's going to push off. And when he pushes off, that foot is going to wind back up and lock. Those 26 bones or 30 joints are going to lock up, so it allows him to push off and propel himself forward. So take a step back for me. Good, and then step forward again. So again, that foot flattens a little bit, and then he goes and he pushes off right there. So it's relatively subtle. If you can't see it, it's okay. We're trained PTs, and this is what we do all day. But we're looking for that foot to collapse a little bit, and then he's going to push off, and again, it'll supinate. That foot turns into a rigid lever, and the muscles of the foot and some of these supporting muscles that run down through here are really allowing this big Achilles to do its job, which is be powerful and explosive and get him moving, well, that way, really, okay? And hopefully in a relatively straight line as you're walking, as needed by sport, of course. So go ahead and face the camera for us, Phil. And so if he's doing that from the front and his feet are pointed relatively straightforward, he tends to be a little toed out, which is totally normal. Some people are a little more toed out than others, and a lot of times it's just how we're structurally built, and that's okay too. But as he goes and he steps forward and then he goes to push off, we can see that his toes are pretty darn straightforward, which means that when they lock up, he's going to go towards you, right? So here's the trick though. When he's going to walk, if he's, let's say he's more toed out, let's say he's like 20 degrees or so toed out, and then go ahead and I want you to take a step towards the camera, Phil. So right there, the biomechanics of his feet are trying to actually track towards me, yet his body's moving that way, like straight towards the camera. So as a result, he's probably not getting into that full supination that we might want or that we think is efficient, and some of his muscles are having to work a little harder to make up for the fact that he can't really lock those joints out, because if he could, then he'd be going more straight. But since they're pointed out, it's harder for him to get into that end range, that really good locked position. So it's going to put a little bit more pressure on the plantar fascia, on the posterior tibialis, on some of those, any of these muscles that are like through the foot, even up kind of like the back side of the ankle, anything through here. For some people, even on their Achilles, if we're doing a lot of running and jumping and we're too turned out. So for some people, we can just say, hey, why don't you try to do this with your toes a little bit straighter than where they are, and just bring your conscious awareness into your foot position as you walk or as you're doing basic everyday tasks. Sometimes that works, sometimes it's not enough. Sometimes we have to tape the foot, and sometimes we even have to talk about shoes or orthotics. Now, personally, I don't mind orthotics as long as we kind of use them to try to get us somewhere, like as a stepping stone, no pun intended. But I do like to think of them as like, let's use this as the tool that you need right now, and then be able to move forward and hopefully lessen that need as time goes on. However, sometimes we just have, based on the way we're built or whatever structures we got, we're going to need more support for longer, and that's okay too. And we just get people into a really good setup and make sure they're orthopedically sound. And that's, like I said, that's okay too. So let's, again, your homework for right now. Can you connect your brain to your feet through arch lifts and toe yoga? And then I want you to be aware of how much you pronate, or even what angle your feet and toes are pointing when you are walking and doing things.